Alright guys, never in a million years would I ever think I'll be making this video because Genshin Impact dev finally listens after 4 years. Definitely a full surprise to a day 1 Genshin Impact player like me. Now, today's video is a very important one because we're going to be discussing the standard banner finally. Yes, the banner that has been around for so freaking long. It's yeah, ever since the start of the game. How it looks toward the banner is basically still the same as when the game came out. Not too much of a changes ever since then, apart from, you know, with the addition of Dehya and Tighnari. Now, I mean, since we're already here, I think I might just want to do a 10 pull and see what I get because I've actually been pulling on the banner for so long and then I get a 5-star off of it. What? I have no idea when was the last time I got a 5-star on the standard banner, but since, you know, today it's kind of like a blessing for today's video and then we just literally get a 5-star on the standard pool. Alright, who's it gonna be? Oh, I can't believe I get a Zethos over this. Okay, that's a Diluc. Oh my god. Okay, well, that's interesting. Sure, I don't mind getting a Diluc because I don't have a C6 yet. Now guys, if you've been watching some of my video, you know that I've been recommending you guys loot bar for around 3 times before, and I believe that it worked pretty well for you guys. So if you don't know what loot bar is, they actually help you to top up Primogems with very safe and secure transactions while having lower pricing discount and a very much trustworthy service with over 100,000 orders, with the majority of the reviews being 5 stars. So check out loot bar through the link in my description guys if you usually top up, as it is a very good way to get Primogems with lower pricing. Regarding that topic, right, we're going to be looking into some of the standard character today, discussing about the character currently, as well as looking into which of the best constellation each of these character would be having, because yeah, if you're going to be choosing some of this character, many of which you're probably going to be prioritizing choosing their constellation at this point, because I'm pretty sure if you've been playing Genshin Impact for quite some time, you should already have, I think, a few copy of these character already, unless you're really not that lucky. So we're not going to be discussing too much into, you know, the meta of these characters in current patches, as well as how to play them, because that's more toward, you know, the building type of video, and that's going to be taking forever. And I would just assume that you already know how these characters are played. And so since we already got Diluc this time around, let's start off with him. Right, we're just going to open that for a constellation of him. Now, I mean, Diluc, yeah, still one of the pyro character we have in the game. That's something I can say about Diluc, because like at this point in time we've just got so many good pyro character already, right? Yeah, ever since we've always had Hutao, and then yes, of course, Alekino here. So not to mention Lini is also one of the better pyro character out there in the game as well. So honestly, if we're looking into DPS level, I don't think Diluc is ever going to be get to a comparable situation to what those character, right? So again, he's more or less going to be a preference type character if you do decide to choose Diluc. Now, the more important thing is us going to be looking into his constellation, right? C1, actually not that good. 15% damage to those who has less than 50% HP is not really that good, so skip that. C2, whenever he takes damage, he's gonna get up to a 30% attack increase with a 15% attack speed increase. Okay, so this is going to be a pretty decent constellation if he's not on a Serpent Spine. So if you do remember, the Serpent Spine is something that you do not want to get hit all the time. But if you're using Diluc on any other Claymore options, I think that C2 is going to be an okay constellation for him. But obviously not the most important thing that he has right now. C3, 3 talent level for his E skill. You usually use his E skill quite a lot, so C3 is a fine thing to have. C4 basically also gives you an extra 40% damage increase to his E skill. Overall, I think it's okay as well. Alright, C5 increase his burst talent level, and then C6, obviously I think this is going to be the best constellation for him right now. Now, C6 gameplay is going to be prioritizing you doing a lot more no more attack. Obviously, there's going to be something that prioritizes you having C6 Bennett alongside with Diluc. So if you are going for Diluc, obviously let's try to aim him to at least a C6 if you want him to do, you know, decent damage compared to some of the other pyro character in the game. Now, obviously, if he is a personal preference for you at this point, any constellation that you have, I think it is going to be an okay boost for Diluc damage at this point in time. Coming up next, we have Dehya. Okay, well, unfortunately, I'd say that Dehya doesn't really have too much of a value at this point in time as well. apart from, yeah, the things that she is able to do in terms of her E skill providing you with resistance to interruption, so it's very good too for character like Ganyu. A bit of pyro application, but again, I'm pretty sure you all know how not that good it is, and her damage, especially at C0, is really lackluster, so it's not really a good thing. However, I mean, if you are going for Dehya, you really prefer her and you would love to have something off of her damage, then trying to get all the way for C6 Dehya is obviously of a prioritization for you. But obviously guys, Dehya, I don't think it's ever going to have a place in the meta because it's very hard to justify a place for her in the team because we've got so many other good characters that can pretty much do the same thing that she does, and a lot of the time better at this point. Now C1's an okay constellation to have. It does buff her HP by quite a bit. 20% is nothing to you know, joke about. It's pretty nice. And then on top of that, the other part of her damage, you know, the Molten Inferno and Leonin Bite also gets, you know, damage increase off of her max HP. So, you know, slightly bit of a damage increase there for her. C2 increase the duration of her fire field uptime, and additionally, whenever your active character get attacked, you know, the next coordinate attack of the field will get an extra 50% damage increase. I think it's a fine constellation. C3 is a good constellation for her because it increases her burst damage, you know, the main part of her damage output. So yes, it's a pretty good thing if you're aiming for Dehya to do damage. C4 can help Dehya to decrease her energy requirement, which is okay considering that you are probably aiming to have Dehya do damage at this point, so having more of a burst uptime is rather nice. C5 increases her E skill damage, which is neglectable. It's not really that good. And C6 again, as I have mentioned, the most important part of Dehya's kit if you really actually want to play her. Up next, we've got our lovely Mona. It's been a while since we've seen Mona, especially, you know, thank God we actually get to see her a little bit during the Simulanka story quest. Otherwise, I don't know when I actually get to see her. But overall, Mona's a nice character, but obviously considering how many Hydro character we've got in the game right now, especially something of a support and damage increase, like, yeah, you've got like Furina, right? Kokomi in terms of Hydro application. So the only thing that Mona has in value is basically just going to be the damage increase output. Therefore, Mona value is really hard to justify at this point in time. If you really do want to use her, well, yeah, you can still force her and use it in the team. However, again, Mona is kind of like a character where you basically kind of like need a bit of skill to use her, because the rotation in order to use Mona can get very specific at times, so you will have to learn a bit whenever you use Mona. Now in terms of her constellations, C1 say fine constellations, not too much of a damage increase. Most of the time it's going to be like a vape damage increase, the most important thing. Other than that, it does say the frozen duration is extended by 15%. There has been mentioning that there was a bug toward Mona that the frozen duration is not increased. Now I don't know at this point in time if it was fixed, but if it is still the case, then this constellation is not really that good. Now C2, it's I don't think it's really good in any way that much, because, well, yeah, she's going to be doing an extra charge attack without consuming stamina for you, and this can only occur once every 5 seconds on top of the 20% chance, so it's not really that good with C2. C3 gets you an extra 3 talent level for her burst, which is the most important part of her kit in terms of, you know, doing damage and buffing your character's attack. So one of the most important parts of her kit, but not going to be as important as C4, is that whenever your party member attack an opponent affected by her omen, you get a 15% crit rate increase, which is really nice. C5, yeah, you're probably never going to be doing damage with her E skill that much, so. And then C6 is like kind of like an interesting thing going on about her. It's kind of like a DPS Mona that is recommended for you to use at C6 if you really do like it, but overall it's kind of clunky to use at time, because again, you do have to, you know, move around her special dash for like up to 3 seconds in order for it to have a maximum damage bonus. So overall, as I mentioned, C4 is going to be the most important constellation that you want to aim for Mona. Up next, we have our lovely Keqing. Yes, right. Well, I mean, yeah, she's my favorite character ever starts of the game. I don't think anyone is going to be replacing my Keqing in any way in Genshin Impact. So yeah, a very lovely character. Now, in terms of her power level, especially if she is at C0, obviously she's going to be falling behind many other Electro DPS characters that we've got in the game. Now, I don't have specifically Cloran here, but many of the time, you know, we've got Cloran as a direct competition toward Keqing, obviously, right? Now, if you've got many Constellation for Keqing, she can be a pretty decent character for you to use. Like obviously guys, I've still used Keqing at this point in time. She's still one of my top DPS character in the game. And of course, we've already seen, you know, Dendro buffing Electro element to a very good amount. So yes, Keqing value is still pretty much there. However, if she's at C0, she's not really that good. She is kind of dependent on you having her Constellation. However, some of her Constellation isn't really that good, like C1, C2 isn't really that valuable toward Keqing because, you know, she has a 40 elemental burst requirement. So getting more elemental particle isn't really too much of a needed for her, though she can help your other Electro character in the team to, you know, charge up more energy. C3 is actually pretty decent. It actually gets you an extra 3 level of her burst. Her burst deals a ton of damage, guys, into her DPS power. So getting more of this is pretty decent. Now C4 is also very important for her as well because yeah, she get an extra 25% attack increase. Why would you want that? So overall, C4 is one of the better Constellation that you want to have. C5, yeah, gets you more E-skill damage increase. And yeah, if you're trying to main for Keqing, you always want to aim for her to get into a C6 because overall you're getting more electro damage bonus, and that's something that, you know, most characters want to have. And then up next we have a lovely Jean. Now Jean, guys, she is still very important in the game. Like apart from Keqing being my most preference character, Jean is a character that sometimes is a must-have on some of the team that we have right now because guys, team-wide healing is still a very important thing to have because, you know, of a character that is Furina. Furina is a character that requires you to have a team-wide healing in order for you to pull off all of her maximum potential. So Jean is a character that fits that very well. Not to mention she is an anemo character, therefore 4P swirling of a very decent is a very important thing. So unless you already have character like Xian Yun, right? If you already have Xian Yun, you're probably not going to be using Jean any longer. But if you don't, then Jean is a character that is still very important for you at this point in time. Not to mention, once you look into her Constellation, depending on what type of role you want to play Jean in, her Constellation has a very huge effect. Like for example, if you're using her as a support character on a team with character that uses normal attack a lot, like on the Keqing team, a C2 Jean is pretty nice. For a 15% attack speed increase, well, even though it's not too much, it's a nice boost to have. Or if you're looking into a C4, it's an anemo resistant shred by a 40%, and that is huge. Resistant shred in the game is still kind of like a rare thing to have. So Jean being a standard character on a C4 that have this is very nice. Now the thing is that this definitely requires her to be on an anemo DPS gameplay, right? If you're looking into it, generally speaking, we don't really have too many DPS anemo character at this point in time. Honestly speaking, guys, if you're really looking into it, you've got like Xiao and Wanderer, as well as Hazel if you're still really much playing Hazel, right? So those characters can utilize Jean. Like for example, if you don't have Xian Yun, then C4 Jean is going to be replacing a Xian Yun on your Xiao team with Farzan, Jean, Xiao, as well as character like Furina, right? That's a very perfect Xiao team. I've tested this team out before. It is very good. And then obviously, other than that, if you're playing on like you know, a DPS Jean, then kind of like up to a C5 Jean can be very nice, so that you get more E-skill damage output. If you do invest into a DPS Jean, one nuke E-skill from Jean does do a pretty decent kind of things, though once again, it's just a preference gameplay on your part, not very too much of an important thing, but it can still be very nice. And then we have Tighnari, which is still a very good character, guys. Well, I don't think I have to mention much because, well, the thing is, Dendro characters are still very good, especially Tighnari being a DPS character, and he has very decent damage output, making Tighnari one of the better standard character out there that you can actually invest in. Very fast and swift gameplay, guys. Overall, I feel that all of Tighnari Constellation does contribute very decently toward his damage output, which makes it the character that I do feel like I'll probably choose whenever, you know, the anniversary rewards come. For C1, you get a charge attack crit rate increase by 15%, very straightforward. He uses all the time, so it's good. C2 basically give him an extra 20% Dendro damage bonus. That's also pretty nice. C3 give him 3 level of his burst damage increase. Now overall, his burst does do pretty decent damage if the enemies is within the field, so it's not really too bad. Now C4 I think is one of the most important part of his kit, because overall you're going to be getting an extra 120 EM boost for your whole team, which is really nice. Very important constellation for Tighnari to have. C5 give him an extra E skill damage increase. I don't think that's very important for him. Probably the least good constellation. And then C6, yeah, it's actually pretty good, because now you can get up to a 3 charge attack with lower charging time, and the third arrow hits get an extra 150% damage boost based on Tighnari's attack. The overall Tighnari constellation is still very nice thing to have. So guys, we just went through all of the standard character and talking about their constellation. Now I think I'll be giving you my most important character priority list in terms of which you should be prioritizing to choose if you're still wondering which character to best invest in. And then the top priority of the list at this point in time, I will still give it to Jean. She's still very much an important character, especially if you don't have her, you know, full constellation yet, at least to a C4, right? I would recommend you to try and get Jean up to a C4, because who's know when you're probably gonna have a good DPS Anemo character to be using alongside with Jean. And then next, as I mentioned, I really value Tighnari here on the standard banner, so if you do like him, I would still recommend you to have, because Sandro element is not going to be going anywhere soon, and he's still a very much good character. Other than that, it's going to be, you know, I think Diluc, Keqing, and Mona are pretty much on the same priority list level. So you can invest into these characters depending on how much of a preference you like into them. And then finally, it's going to be Dehya and oh my god, we forgot about Qiqi. Oh, I'm so sorry, but like honestly guys, it's Qiqi guys. Like I don't think any one of you are probably going to be investing into Qiqi anytime soon, unless there are any kind of co-op content. Now if we're going to be looking into co-op content, Qiqi is probably one of the best characters there is, but we don't have co-op content, so sadly Qiqi is still not going to be a character that I can ever recommend, though she's a very cute zombie. But none of her constellations are good. I don't think I have to go through it too much. Her C6 is probably the most valuable thing she has. But guys, hopefully I really wish you that you don't ever get to a C6 Qiqi. Right, final thing is going to be Qiqi and Dehya. So overall, I think that covers all the standard characters. I hope that the video has been helpful for you. If you do have any other questions, guys, just leave it down in the comment sections, and I or some other lovely Genshin Impact player will get to you there. Now guys, patch 5.0 is going to be coming soon, and along with that, there are so many new 5-star character, Natlan, as well as good rerun character that are coming back. So if you're planning to pull for any of the character yet you are still on the fence, be sure to check out the video where I cover very in-depth into that, as I'm sure it will be very valuable to you. I really appreciate you guys sticking with me till this part of the video, guys, and with that I wish you a super day, and I will catch you on my next video.